Hello everyone, in this video we'll talk about the subject. So you already know what is the observable and observer, and actually subject is something that represents both because it extends observable class and implements observer interface. Let's see how it looks and works in code. So there are four types of subject and I will describe published subject example first. In this specific example I will show you how we can consolidate multiple observables into one single observable. And what does it mean? Well, it means that I want to, for example, receive all items in one place, in single observer. Let's see how it can be achieved with the subjects. So I'm creating my source 1 and source 2, which basically emit items every second. In the next line, I'm creating my subject, which is at the same time observable and observer. To prove that, let's take a look at subject class. As you can see, it implements observer interface and extends observable class. So we can access to methods from both of these entities. The next line, I'm subscribing to my subject, and this is the place where we'll receive all items from source 1 and source 2. But of course, to achieve that, we still need to tell our subject that it will receive items from source 1 and source 2. And this is how you do it. You basically subscribe on source 1 and source 2 to our subject. And now our subject is able and it will receive all items from source 1 and source 2. Let's run this example. So as you can see, our subject receives items from both source 1 and source 2. And actually achieving similar behavior can be also accomplished with merge operator. But you may work, for example, with code base where something like this is not possible or your team prefer different approach. The next type of subject I want to describe is behavior subject. So imagine that you have some observable which emit items and has many observers. And for any new subscriber observer, you want to achieve behavior when this observer receives only the latest item and subsequent items emitted by observable. This is what you can achieve with behavior subject, and actually I present it on a real world example. So I'm creating my behavior subject example here at this line. And this is represented by radio, which play some songs in room. Now, at some point in time, person number 1 enters the room and starts listening to radio. So basically, it starts listening to our subject. Later, our radio plays some songs. So song number 1, number 2, and number 3. During song number 3, person number 2 enters the room and starts listening to radio. And of course, in that situation, person number 2 doesn't care about songs number 2 and number 1 because he or she couldn't hear it anyway, right? Because this person was not present in this room. So let's start this example. And as you can see, this is behavior subject in practice. So person 1 entered the room and then he or she listened to song number 1, number 2, and number 3. But when we have new subscriber, so person number 2 subscribed to our subject, to our radio, he or she only heard song number 3. So for any case you want to achieve similar behavior, you should use behavior subject. The third type of subject is replay subject. In case of replay subject, new observer receives all of the item emitted by observable, this replay subject, independently of time of subscription. So it doesn't matter if some servers subscribe at the very beginning of item emissions or at the very end, it still will receive all the items. And I will show you this on a real life example. So I'm creating my replay subject, which represents some teacher in some classroom. At the very beginning of the lesson, student A enters the classroom and of course he starts listening to our teacher. Our teacher talks about some important topics, topic number 1, number 2, number 3. So 3 items are emitted after subscription of student A. At the very end of the lesson, student B enters the classroom. so he is late, but still he wants to receive all the previously emitted items. So he wants to know about the topics which were told before he entered the classroom. And because our teacher is replay subject, so he is very nice, he repeats all the information which he already told to the student B. Let's see how it looks in practice. So as you can see, our student A, which entered the room, of course, at the very beginning of the lesson, received all the items. And our student B, despite he was late, he also received all the items. Because our teacher, as I said, is very nice, because he's represented by replay subject. The last subject type I want to describe is async subject. And in case of async subject, any new subscriber will receive only the last item emitted by the subject at the very end of the stream when the onComplete is called. So let's start with the example right away. So we have our subject, async subject, which represents some teacher. Student A enters the classroom and he starts listening to our teacher. Our teacher talks about some boring topics, topic number 1, number 2, and number 3. Then student B enters the classroom, so he also starts listening to our teacher. Then at the very end of the lesson, teacher talks about very important information about exam. And this is the information in which student A and student B are interested in. So let's run this example. And as you can see that student A and student B received only the information number 4, which is the information about the exam. And despite student A starts listening at the very beginning of the stream, he really didn't care about these topics, about the items. He really cared about this last information which was told by the teacher. And of course, naturally, student B received the last item. Alright, and we are at the very end of the video. So today we described publish subject, behavior subject, replay subject, and async subject. And I hope that you now have more knowledge when to use them. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video. Bye.